So today is a very special day on the Vaishnava calendar, and it's the commemoration of the disappearance day, or days, of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Gadadhar Pandit Goswami. So we're going to have a class about them today, and first we're going to chant the prayers to the departed Vaishnavas. And I guess after greeting the deities, we can have a Pushpanjali and an arti for Bhaktivinoda, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, because that's the standard. Pushpanjali basically means to worship with flowers. And you'll see, it's flowers and mantras. It's mantra Anjali, Mancharanjali, and Pushpanjali. Okay. So, first we'll chant this prayer. Saparshada Gora Viraha Vilapa. Ye Anilo Prema Janta Korana Pracho Hello Prabhu Kotagena Acharya Thakur Kahamora Sarupa Rupa Kasanata Gadasa Raghunatha Pachita Pavaham Kahamora Mata Yuga Kahakaviras Ekakale Kotagela Goranataras Pashane Kutivo Matcha Anale Basibo Gauranga Kunera Nere Kota Gele Pabo Se Saba Sangira Sange Ye Koila Milakas Se Sanganap Payakande Narotamhodas Jayanilo Prema Dana Corona Prachu Jaya Jaya Thakur Jaya Jaya Thakur Jaya Jaya Thakur Jaya Jaya Thakur Jaya Thakur Jai Om Vishnu Pad Paramahansa Paravanikacharya also Teta Satashir Shiman His Divine Grace Savaya Charana Bhaktivedanta Goswami Marshila Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Adanta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Friends say go Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shidwaita Gadadha Shiva Siddhi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radhakrishna Gopika Bharat Shyama Kunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavanam Ki Jai Maturadam Ki Jai Jagadada Sami Ki Jai Manamai Ki Jai Shrimati Tulasi Devi Ki Jai Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Gaur Premananda Haribol, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharni Nirvashesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Dejatarni. So we're going to read the translation to this poem. He who brought the treasure of divine love, and it was filled with compassion and mercy. Where is such a personality as Srinivasacharya God? Where am I, Swarup Damodar and Rupa Goswami? Where is Sanatan? Where is Raghunath Das, the savior of the fallen? Where am I, Raghunath Bhatta and Gopal Bhatta? And where is Krishna's Kaviraj? Where did Lord Gauranga, the great dancer, suddenly go? I will smash my head against the rock and enter into the fire. Where will I find Lord Gauranga, the reservoir of all wonderful qualities? Being unable to obtain the association of Lord Gauranga, accompanied by all of these devotees in whose association he performed his pastimes, Narottama Das simply weeps. So we're going to speak about these two great personalities, of course. So Omagana Timidanda Shah Gananjana Shlakaya Chakshurun Meditam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Of course, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur is a devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and Gadadhar Pandit Goswami is the Shakti, actually, an expansion of Srimati Radharani. So ontologically, they're different, but spiritually, they're engaged in the same activity, worshiping the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So let's talk first about Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So what I usually like to do when I'm talking about Bhaktivinoda Thakur is talk about his determination to serve the Lord and to, as a Vaishnava, of course he is a Vaishnava, but one of the Vaishnava qualities is that not to waste any time. You know, generally, we all waste so much time, and you know, we don't have too much time for Krishna because we're wasting a lot of time. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur was one of the first acharyas, as far as I know, to have a watch. Now, some of you don't have watches anymore. Some of you more attentive people do have watches. But anyway, and Srila Prabhupada had a watch, and even as you see on Srila Prabhupada's murti, we put a watch there. Now that's very unusual. Of course, we don't put a watch on the deity of Krishna on the altar because Krishna also is what Kalo Asmi. He is time. So what that indicates, you know, putting the watch on Krishna, on Srila Prabhupada, and also Bhaktivinoda Thakur's watch, is that they did not waste a single moment. And we're going to hear about the schedule right now just to appreciate that particular quality of his. So here's his schedule. So he would take rest every night early. Actually, incidentally, there was a study recently that those who take rest early and get up early tend to live a few years longer than those who don't. That's just a scientific study. It's not a Hare Krishna study, don't worry. It wasn't from the ISKCON Communication Journal or anything like that, or from Back to Godhead. So this is really important. So he would take rest at 7:30 to 8, and at 10 o'clock at night, he would get up, and he would light his oil lamp, because at that time they didn't have electricity, and he would write all night long. And actually, our Srila Prabhupada, of course, he didn't get up at 10, but usually got up about 1 o'clock in the morning. And he would take that opportunity to write, because during the rest of the day there were people coming, there were darshans, there was prasadam to take. So it's a very quiet time to write and accomplish a lot. So, and you see that Srila Prabhupada was able to translate and comment on so many books in a short amount of time because of that particular schedule. Schedules are very important. I know that in the past when I've advised devotees, they actually get really upset with me when I start to talk about giving them a schedule. So, but this is how Prabhupada trained us. You know, 4:30, we're there, rise and shine, on time for Mangalarti, so that we can greet the deities, and the deities don't greet us as we walk in a few minutes later. You know, very, very important. Prabhupada is very much into punctuality. So, especially with deity service, Prabhupada said that punctuality and cleanliness are the most important things. And next, of course, is nice bhoga being offered to the deities. So at 10 o'clock, he would rise and write, and he would stay up all night until 4 a.m., and then he would take what we would call nowadays a power nap till 4:30. And he'd rise again, wash his hands and face, and he'd be chanting his japa. And he'd chant his japa until 7 o'clock. At 7 o'clock in the morning, strict. This is a very strict schedule. He would write letters. At 7:30, he would read. And then at 8:30, he would receive guests or continue to read till about 9:30, at which time he would take a 15-minute power nap till 9:45. At 9:45, he would take his morning bath, a breakfast of half quart of milk, a couple of chapatis, and fruit. Very simple. At 9:55, he would Actually, that's 10 minutes to do all those things. So at 9:55, he would go to court in a carriage, and he would wear, well, not exactly Western clothes like UK clothes or judge clothes, coat and pants to court. And any of you who know about the court system in the UK would know that they actually wear wigs, white wigs, and even the lawyers, they wear white wigs. I have some disciples, lady disciples, who are working in the court system, either as judges or as lawyers, and the ladies wear white wigs too, which is really interesting. But he would always wear his Tulsi neck beads and tilak, and he's very, very strong in his decisions. We're going to hear about one of those decisions in a little while. And nobody could actually be an upstart in court. He would just be very, very strong with them. He would shave his head monthly, and he was very strict about any instruments other than mridanga cartels. He wouldn't even allow a harmonium. And he never had any debts. In other words, nowadays, of course, we were speaking to devotees yesterday, and how so many of them have these credit card debts, revolving credit. And this is something that Prabhupada didn't like. And, of course, and Bhakti Vinod Thakur didn't like. And Chanakya Pandit, you know what he says? Fire, disease, and debt have to be extinguished immediately. Chanakya Pandit. Because these things get worse with time. Okay. Word to the wise is sufficient. At 10 o'clock, the court began. At 1 o'clock, the court finished. He'd come home, bathe, and refresh himself. And at 2 o'clock, he'd return to his office. Shh. 2 o'clock, he'd return to his office, and he'd work until 5 p.m. And also many of the biographers describe that he would do a full day's work in terms of passing judgments and a half a day at court. At 5 p.m., he would translate works from Sanskrit to Bengali. Then he'd take his evening bath, meal of rice, a couple of chapatis again, and a half quart of milk. And it's described he always consulted his pocket watch, which, as I talked about before, because they didn't have wristwatches at that time. He was very charitable. He was never showed any pride, and he never accepted any gifts. Now, as a judge, that's pretty good. Nowadays, we even see in the Supreme Court of the United States, there's some of the Supreme Court justices who are accepting, really large gifts from people. So, and he didn't accept any honors, and he said honors would stand against his holy mission in life. Wow. Very moral. He didn't go to theaters, and he was quite educated. He spoke Bengali, Sanskrit, English, Latin, Urdu, Persian, and Orient. That's called a polyglot, for those you don't know. That means someone who knows many languages. He started writing his books at the age of 12, and he turned out so many books. We're going to read some of his books, or read the names of some of his books in a few minutes. So here's a little bit of his biography. He was born in September 2nd, 1838, and he was actually born in a very wealthy family. But, however, on his mother's side, there was no respect for Vaishnavism. He was called Kedarnath when he was young. Kedarnath is the name of Lord Shiva, actually. So when he was 11 years old, his father passed away, and the family lost everything, and they fell into a condition of poverty. And in those days, they arranged marriages very, very early. When he was 12 years old, he got married. Now, don't get shocked with this, because it doesn't mean that the boy and the girl would live together at that time. At 12 years old, 1850, he was married to a girl who was 5 years old. And the reason for that was not that this marriage was consummated or anything like that. They didn't live together for many, 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 many years after that. The reason for that is that when the girl grew up and the boy grew up, their minds would be fixed upon their particular. I'm not advocating that in America in any way or in the modern world in any way like that, but their mind would be fixed rather than thinking, is this the person for me? Is that the person for me? And the parents would take a lot of care. I know in America it really goes against the grain, but it actually worked. I mean, I have many friends who met each other for the first time at the ceremony. That comes as a shock to some of you. And these are some of the best marriages I've ever seen. Anyway, not going to get into that. So anyway, so he became very sick when he was young because of the salty water in Calcutta. And there was a Muslim soothsayer who predicted when he was very, very young, when he was like 15 years old, that he would become recognized as a great devotee of Krishna later on. This is a Muslim predicting that. So at 18, he entered the university, and he wrote extensively in English and Bengali. And this shows his great erudition. He became so expert in English literature that he actually taught speech making to a person who became a well-known orator in the British Parliament. That's amazing. I mean, as a college student, university student, and in 1857, 1 year after he entered the university, he composed a 2-part English epic entitled The Poriad, which he wanted to complete in 12 books, but he didn't complete. And these books describe the life of Porus, who met Alexander the Great. So he's quite educated, very high level. In the beginning, he was very much taken by Christian theology. The reason for that was the main way that Hinduism was being presented at that time was what we call monism, as in personalism. And so he wasn't an impersonalist, he was attached to the worship of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And so the common understanding of Hinduism or the religions in India or the religion in India was quite impersonalistic. So as an aspiring Christian at that time, he studied the works of Channing, Parker, Emerson, and Newman, which are very prominent. And he sort of integrated some of the Vedic understandings into his understanding of Christianity, because at the British Indian Society, when he was about 20 years old, he gave a lecture on the evolution of matter through the material mode of goodness. So even before he came to Krishna consciousness. Of course, one may say, well, he's an interested devotee, he was always Krishna conscious. Of course he was always Krishna conscious. However, this is a pastime, what we call Yogamaya, or what is Yogamaya, arranged for this pastime where Bhaktivinoda Thakur appeared to be someone who wasn't yet aware of Krishna consciousness, whereas in reality he was aware, just like Arjuna was put in under the influence of Yogamaya. And in this way, Arjuna appeared to be someone who was in Maya attached to his family. So anyway, at a particular point, he went to Orissa while he was still going to the university and visited his grandfather, who was living in Orissa, the countryside there. And this grandfather was a great mystic, and he could predict the future. So he wanted Kedarnath, who was Bhaktivinoda Thakur, of course, to be with him when he departed the world, which he did in 1859 when Bhaktivinoda Thakur was 21. So he received his grandfather's last instructions to travel to all the monasteries and temples in the state of Orissa, and also his grandfather predicted that he would preach Krishna consciousness widely. So in 1861, he became a deputy magistrate in the government of Bengal, And he kept writing many different literatures. One is an English book called the Arwan's Book, and another book was Sannyasi. At this time, he received copies of the Srimad Bhagavatam and the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So his faith in Krishna consciousness developed. As I mentioned before, this is a pastime. One shouldn't think that he wasn't Krishna conscious before. So his faith in Krishna consciousness developed, and he became completely absorbed after reading these bhakti shastras. Because previously he was just exposed to impersonal literature or impersonal interpretations of the Vedic literatures. So he began praying incessantly to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And at that point, he began composing songs to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, one which is known as the Satchidananda Premalankara. So then he began to, in 1869, that's a few years, about 5 years after he received the Srimad Bhagavatam, he started lecturing about Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he gave a whole lecture to a big congregation of many prominent men from England and parts of India. So later on, he was transferred, because he was a judge, he was transferred to this place called Champarana. And Champarana, people used to worship, this is the worship left-handed tantra, they worshipped a ghost in a banyan tree, which had the power to influence a local judge. You know, so if someone was arrested or something, they would worship the ghost, and the ghost would influence the local judge to give a favorable judgment. It's interesting. This is left-handed tantra. It's called left-handed tantra. So the ghost was in a banyan tree. And so Bhaktivinoda Thakur engaged the father of a great lady Pandit, whose name was Pandita Ramabai, to read Srimad Bhagavatam under the tree for 1 month, and the tree crashed to the ground. And the ghost was gone. So from there, Bhaktivinoda Thakur went to Jagannath Puri. Now, near the capital of Orissa, because Jagannath Puri is in Orissa, but the capital is Bhubaneswar, in the town of Kamanala, there was a yogi. And this yogi was also, I guess left-handed tantra or something. And his name was Vishakishena, and he would lean into a fire and not get burnt. And he'd rock back and forth over the flames. He would produce fire from his head. And he had two friends who he named Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva. And because of his mystic powers, he was able to control all the kings in that particular area. And they were sending him funds for the construction of his temple. And we should learn how to do that. But the other things we don't want to learn how to do, because they also sent him ladies with whom he engaged in Rasa Leela enjoyments. I'm not going to describe what that means. So he was also against the British, because that was his major crime. Being against the British, he said he would drive off all the British from Orissa. Oh my God, not much time. And he circulated statements like this all over Orissa. So the British thought, we got to get rid of this guy. So the district officer, or district governor in Bengal, he drew up arrest papers, and nobody wanted to go and arrest him because they were afraid of him, his mystic powers. So then eventually they requested Bhaktivinoda Thakur to bring him to justice. Bhaktivinoda Thakur went there, and this yogi showed him some powers and told him, I know who you are and what your mission is, but you better not interfere with me. And then Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, please come to Puri and have darshan of Lord Jagannath. And this rascal said, "Why should I come to see Jagannath?" Now, don't listen to what I'm going to say next. "He's only a hunk of wood. I am the supreme in person." So when Bhaktivinoda Thakur heard this, because this is the devotee's duty, when you hear blasphemy, to respond immediately like fire, he became instantly furious and arrested the rogue, brought him to Puri, and threw him in jail. Personally did it. Where he was guarded by 3 dozen, oh my God, 36 Muslim constables, because the Muslims weren't worried about him, and 72 policemen, one person, and these persons came from Cuttack. Rama and Shiva avoided arrest by claiming they'd been forced to do it. Just following orders. So they were never arrested, but later on they were prosecuted. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur conducted the trial. The trial lasted for 18 days. Thousands of people protested. Wow. Sounds like what's happening today with it, isn't it? Thousands of people protested because they thought he was God. So sometimes you have I shouldn't say this. Sometimes you have a politician with these blind followers and they protest when someone goes to court. It's exactly like that. And they demanded his release. And so this yogi was trying to influence Bhaktivinoda Thakur by causing harm not only to Bhaktivinoda Thakur, but to Bhaktivinoda Thakur's family. So the 6th day of the trial, Bhaktivinoda Thakur's second daughter, whose name was Kadambini, she was 7 years old, became very ill and was ready to die. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur was still determined. He knew it was the power of the yogi. And when his wife complained, don't convict this guy. Our family is very important. He said, "Let us all die." Such determination, isn't it? For Dharma. I mean, this is the determination devotees should have. Not to die, of course, but, let's be dharmic no matter what. No matter what we're attracted to or what we're threatened by. Krishna is protecting us. Anyway, so he said, "Let us all die, but this rascal must be punished." The next day, the yogi announced his power, and he said that, "Unless you let me go, you're going to face worse miseries." So Bhaktivinoda Thakur was not deterred at all. So the last day of the trial, Bhaktivinoda Thakur became ill from high fever and was almost dying too. But he dragged himself to court on the final day and sentenced him. The yogi only got 18 months for political conspiracy. But what happened when he was being taken away for jail, there was an English doctor who knew that yogi's power was kept in the hair. That's why sometimes devotees may want to grow their hair. But actually, a Vaishnava's power is in the heart and with Krishna. So anyway, so this district medical officer cut off all the yogi's hair. The yogi fell to the ground. He hadn't eaten or drunk for the whole trial because he was performing austerities to try to get even with Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And he fell to the ground like a dead man. And he went to the jail, and after a few months, he took poison and died. So later on, Bhaktivinoda Thakur studied Bhagavatam more with the commentary of Sridhar Swami, the Shatsandarbhas of Srila Jiva Goswami. Spent a lot of time in seclusion in 1874 to 1893, chanting the holy name, wrote several books in Sanskrit. I mean, literally, he had hundreds of works, not hundreds of books, but hundreds of works, poetry books, song books, philosophy books. I mean, right now we're studying the Jaiva Dharma. So some of the books are Sri Krishna Sangita, Tattva Sutra, Tattva Viveka, Kalyana Kalpataru, Datta Kosubha. So then he established the Vaishnava Discussion Society in Jagannath Puri. So anyway, there was a devotee who offended him named Raghunath Das Babaji. He contracted a deadly disease, and Bhaktivinoda Thakur cured him of this disease when he apologized to Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Uh, another rascal started a bogus mantra. His name was Charan Das Babaji. He started this. I'm not going to recite this mantra. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur opposed that. And of course, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, who was his son, opposed him so vehemently that that he almost caused a riot in Jagannath Puri because he was opposed to this bogus sadhu who was very popular. So, let me see. We don't have much time. So, of course, Bhaktivinoda Thakur is the father of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Another thing that happened is when he was the magistrate in Puri, he discovered that the king of Puri had misappropriated 80,000 rupees for sense gratification. And this was from the temple. He took it actually from the hundi and what was meant for Lord Jagannath. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur forced the king to give Lord Jagannath bhoga 52 times a day. And so the money ran out, and the king was so angry at Bhaktivinoda Thakur that he took the help of 50 pandits to conduct a ceremony at yajna to kill Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and this yajna went on for 30 days. And when the last oblations were poured into the yajna, it was the king's son and Bhaktivinoda Thakur not Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who passed away. So, anyway, there's so much here, and it's almost time to greet the deities. Let's see what else. Bhaktivinoda Thakur took Pancharatrika initiation from Bipini Vihari Goswami, who descended from the Janava family. Janava, of course, is the wife of Lord Nityananda. And let's see. In 1881, he started to publish Sajjana Toshani, a Vaishnava journal. He went to Vrindavan in 1866. And he spent actually many months there and met Jagannath Das Babaji and accepted Jagannath Das Babaji as his Shiksha Guru. So let me just go to the disappearance pastimes. I mean, there's so much here that Bhaktivinoda Thakur did. Of course, he was the one who discovered the appearance place of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, which is called the Yoga Pit in Sridham Mayapur. So here's so he was staying in Krishna Nagar, and then he used to go to Navadvip and search for the birth site of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. One night he was sitting on the roof of the Rani Dhamshala, which is the place where he stayed, in Navadvip, chanting on his beads, when he spotted a very tall tree with some very strange substance attached to it, and near the tree was a small building that gave off an effulgence. And he began to study some very old manuscripts about Navadvip and the Nadia area. And finally, he went to that particular place where he had seen this substance or glow coming. And this was confirmed to be the appearance place of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and it was confirmed later on by Jagannath Das Babaji, who was about 125 years old at that point. And when he was brought there, he started dancing in ecstasy to confirm that this was the appearance place of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And so much information we don't have time to talk about. So in 1891, he took leave from government service and he started preaching Harinam. He opened up many branches of Namahata all over that part of India. Established the deities in the Yoga Pit, the place where Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared. In 1894, at the age of 56, he retired from his service as a Supreme Court or a court justice, and he wrote more literatures. Let's try to get to the final pastimes here. Okay, here's I have a list of all the works, but I'm not going to read them all because it's just too many. So on June 23rd, anyway, let's go back a little bit. In 1908, he actually took the Vesh of a Babaji at Satsangna in Puri. That means he still kept preaching as a Babaji, and he would move between Calcutta and Puri, and he was still writing books, but during that time, at the end, he shut himself up and entered into samadhi, claiming that he was paralyzed. So on June 23rd, 1914, just before noon at Jagannath Puri, Bhaktivinoda Thakur left his body, and of course this day is also the disappearance day of Srila Gadadhar Pandit Goswami, and his body was interred in Godrum Dvipa after the next solstice, that is, the summer solstice had just begun when Bhaktivinoda Thakur left his body. And just a little bit about his character that was written by a high court judge. I knew Bhaktivinoda Thakur intimately as a friend and a relation. Even under the pressure of official work as a magistrate in charge of the heavy subdivision, he would always find time for devotional contemplation and work, and whenever I met him, our talk would turn in a few moments to the subject of bhakti and Dvaita, Dvaita, Vada. That means duality. Dvaita, Advaita, Vada. So one and different simultaneously. That's a Chinchabeta Veda Tattva. And the saintly work that lay before him. Service to God is the only thing he longed for, and service under the government, however honorable, was to him a clog. And basically, just to give you an idea, this, I don't know if you can all see this, but this is like a list of all of his works. It goes on several pages. Whoops. Several pages. Oh my God, it's like 3 or 4 pages, or 5 pages, 6 pages of different works that he published. So, anyway, any questions about Bhaktivinoda Thakur? And today, of course, is also the disappearance day of Gadadhar Pandit Goswami, who is an expansion of Srimati Radharani, who appeared with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in his pastimes. Actually, he was 1 year younger than Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And tonight in our class, we're going to talk about Gadadhar Pandit Goswami. I mean, there's so much information about Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And so any questions or comments? Questions? Yes. Yeah. Well, one differentiates because the acharyas who are able to understand these things because of their spiritual realization, they're the ones who differentiate, not us. They can differentiate. And also, there may be some shastric evidence too, and you can also see by their preaching that they've been empowered to do something extraordinary. Like you see, Srila Prabhupada, in Srila Prabhupada's case, that Srila Prabhupada was empowered to do something extremely extraordinary. And also he was predicted, or his mission was predicted by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur and also by Lord Nityananda. So then you can see they're not ordinary personalities. So they're definitely they're Nitya-siddha devotees. Anyway, there's many varieties of evidence that prove that particular point. So we have to, and now we're going to have Guru Puja and Pushpanjali for Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur in a few minutes after greeting the deities. So thank you very much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Enam Kanvandam Maravindadalaya Taksham Marhavatam Samasitam Buddha Sundarangam Kandar Agom Vikamaniya Vishesha Shobham Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Angani Yasa Sakalem Priya Priti Manti Lasyan Dipan Dikayanti Jiram Naganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadhu Jala Vigrahasya Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam.
All right. So this is called a Pushpanjali, as we mentioned before. Pushpanjali means worship with flowers. So for those of you who not aware of what a Pushpanjali is or consists of, what we do is recite responsively what's called the Mangal Charna prayers. Mangal Charna means the auspicious prayers. And we go through them. It takes about 5 minutes to go through all of them. And then after that, we go back to Bhaktivinoda Thakur's pranam mantras, and then we offer flowers 9 times. That's, of course, 3 times at once. You know, every time we say, Esha Pushpanjali, Esha Pushpanjali, Esha Pushpanjali, then we offer obeisances, do it another 3, and then another 3, so that's 9. And then after that, we have an arti for Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So please repeat. Om Gana Timirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapatantikam Vandeham Shri Goro Shri Uta Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagata Raghunatanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sadvadutam Purishna Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Shimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Iti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nivishesha Shunyavadi Paschatcha Deshatarane Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Shimate Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Iti Namade Shivarshavanavi Devi Dvaitaya Kripabdehe Krishna Sambandha Vijnana Dayane Prabhave Namaha Madhurya Ujjvala Parimadja Shirupanuga Bhaktida Shigora Kordana Shakti Vigrahaya Namostute Namaste Gauravani Shimurtehe Dinatarine Rupanuga Virudapa Siddhanta Dvantaharine Namo Gaurakishoraya Sakshad Vairagya Murtehe Vipralamba Rasambode Padambujaya Te Namaha Namo Bhaktivinodaya Satchidananda Namane Gaura Shakti Surupaya Rupanuga Varayate Gora Avirava Bhumestvam Nideshta Sajana Priyaha Vaishnava Sarvabhauma Shri Jagannathaya Te Namaha Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vyahevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Panchatattva Atmakam Krishnam Bhaktarupa Sarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhaktashaktikam Namo Mahavananyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gora Tishe Namaha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radhakanta Namostute Jayatam Suratau Pangor Mamamanda Matergati Matsarvashra Padambojau Radha Madana Mohanau Divyad Vrindaranya Kalpa Drumada Srimad Ratnagara Singhasanastau Srimad Radha Shilagovinda Deval Prestalibi Savyamana Smarami Sriman Rasa Rasarambi from Shivata Tatastitaha Karshan Venu Swanira Gopir Gopinatha Shri Stunaha Tapta Kanchana Gourangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Stute Devi Pranamami Hari Prihe Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. So again, Bhaktivinoda Thakur's Pranam mantra, and then after this we're going to go Esha Pushpanjali 3 times. You throw flowers, offer obeisances, and then we do the Pranam mantra of Bhaktivinoda Thakur again, Esha Pushpanjali 3 times, offer obeisances, and then we do the mantra again and 3 times. So, and then we do the Guru Puja. So, please repeat. Namo Bhaktivinodaya Satchidananda Namane Gaura Shakti Swarupaya Rupanuga Purayate. So, Esha Pushpanjali Esha Pushpanjali Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai. Namo Bhaktivinodaya Satchidananda Namane Gaura Shakti Swarupaya Rupanuga Varayate Esha Pushpanjali Pushpanjali Jai Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai. Final time. Namo Bhaktivinodaya Satchidananda Namane Gaura Shakti Swarupaya Rupanuga Purayate Pushpanjali Pushpanjali Jai Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur.
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakti Sadma. Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakti Sadma. Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakti Sadma. Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakti Sadman Bandho Mui Savadanama Te Bandho Mui Danama Te Bandho Mui Savadanama Te Bandho Mui Nama Te Yahara Prasade Bhai A Bhavatori Yahara Prasade Bhai A Bhavatori Yahara Prasade Bhai A Bhavatori Prasade Bhai A Bhavatori Krishna Prapti Hoya Hoy te nam yam de Krishna Prapti Hoya Hoy te Krishna Prapti Hoya Hoy te Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chitte Koriyaya 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 Arana Koriya Maneya Sharana Koriya Maneya Sharana Koriya Maneya Sharana Koriya Maneya Sham Shri Guru Charane Rati Ase Uttamagati Shri Guru Rane Rati Ase Uttamagati Shri Guru Charane Rati Ase Uttamagati Shri Guru Rane Rati Ase Uttamagati Niye Prasade Pure Sarva Asha Ye Prasade Pure Sarva Sham Ye Prasade Pure Sarva Asha Ye Pure Sarva Chakudan Dilo Jai Jami Jami Prabhu say Chakudan Dilo Jai Mi Jan Mi Prabhu say Chakudan Dilo Jai Jan Mi Prabhu say Nandi Lo Jai Jan Mi Prabhu Divya Gyan Ridi Prakrasita Divya Gyan Prasita Divya Gyan Ridi Prakrasita Divya Gyan Ridi Prakrasita Prema Bhakti Yahoite Avidya Vinyasa Yati Prema Bhakti Avidya Vinyasa Prema Bhakti Yahoite Avidya Vinyasa Yati Prema Yahoite Avidya Vinyasa Vedic Gayana Racharita Vedic Gayana Racharita Vedic Gayana Racharita Vedic Racharita Sri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adamajanada Bandhu Sri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adamajanada Bandhu Sri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adamajanada Bandhu Sri Guru Sindhu Adamajanada Bandhu Lokanath Lokera Jivana Lokera Jivana Lokanath Lokera Jivana Lokera Jivana Ha ha Prabhu Koradoya De Amore Padachaya Ha ha Prabhu Koradoya More Padachaya Ha ha Prabhu Koradoya De Amore Padachaya Ha ha Prabhu Doya de amore padachaya Ebiyasa Skuship Tribu Bana Ebiyasa Tribu Bana Oh Ebiyasa Skuship Tribu Bana Ebiyasa Tribu Bana Jaya Charya Thakur Jaya Charya Thakur Acharya Thakur Jaya 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 Bhakti Vinod Jaya Bhakti Vinod Jaya Bhakti Vinod Jaya Bhakti Vinod Jaya Vinod Jaya Bhakti Vinod Jaya Bhakti Vinod Jaya Bhakti Jaya Bhakti Vinod Acharya Thakur Bhakti Vinod Acharya Thakur Jaya Bhakti Vinod Acharya Thakur Jaya Bhakti Vinod Jaya Acharya Thakur Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya 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 Gurudev 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev Jaya Jaya Gurudev